Before we get into these chilling real-life summer horror stories, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment that's as cool as you are. Now turn down the lights and let's begin. Story 1. The Man at the Window. Few summers ago, I was babysitting my niece for the afternoon while my brother and his wife worked late. They live in an old, narrow house in England, one of those strange little homes with unusually tall stone walls and a long backyard. The kind of place that makes you feel like you're in a different time. It was early evening, still warm and bright, so we left the back door open to let in some fresh air. I was in the kitchen chopping vegetables for dinner, keeping an eye on my niece as she wandered around with her favorite stuffed rabbit. She drifted between the living room and the garden, giggling and humming to herself. She's always been curious, always climbing up to the dining room window to wave at people passing by, like she's the neighborhood mascot or something. It was adorable, until she waved and said, "Hi there," in her usual sweet little voice. I figured she was just saying hello to a neighbor or someone walking their dog. I even waved out of habit. But then, a minute or two later, she said it again, this time with more excitement, like whoever it was had waved back or done something funny. That's when something in her tone made me pause. I looked over, and that's when I saw it. Just above the bottom of the window frame, I saw the top of a head. Not the whole face, just two eyes staring into the house. At first, I thought I was seeing things. Maybe a neighbor had crouched down to pick something up. But as I stepped closer, I realized there was a man crouching outside the window, staring in, not blinking, not moving, just watching us. When he saw me, he slowly stood up. Then, still maintaining eye contact, he knocked on the window, 3 slow, deliberate taps, and smiled. Not a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that says, "This is a game and you're losing." I grabbed my niece. I couldn't tell if I was more scared or furious. I yelled at him to leave or I'd call the police. That's when I realized my phone wasn't on the kitchen counter where I had left it. I looked back at him. His smile grew wider, as if he knew I didn't have my phone. Then he vanished. Seconds later, there was a loud, violent banging on the front door, over and over, like someone trying to break it down. My niece started crying from the noise. I screamed that I was calling the police, even though I had no idea how I would. My phone was gone, and then he laughed, a horrible, muffled laugh, like he was trying to hold it back but couldn't. It sent chills straight down my spine. The only thing keeping me from full-blown panic was knowing that the front door had 3 heavy locks and a deadbolt. I crept to the front window, pulled the curtain closed, and then did the same in the living room. As soon as the curtains were drawn, the knocking stopped. Complete silence. For a second, I thought maybe he'd finally left. I took a deep breath and gently set my niece down. She went right back to playing with her toy bunny like nothing had happened. I started frantically searching for my phone. Maybe she had taken it, but it was just gone. Then I remembered there was a landline tucked behind one of the chairs in the living room. I pulled the curtain just enough to reach for it and glanced outside. Nothing. No one on the porch. Just an empty street. I felt a wave of relief. And that's when I heard my niece say, "Hi there," again. But this time, she wasn't at the window. She was looking straight toward the hallway. I turned around, and he was inside, standing in the doorway, barely lit by the fading sunlight. That same twisted grin on his face. I think my brain just switched into survival mode. I grabbed my niece and backed toward the second exit. He began walking slowly toward us, hands behind his back like he was waiting for me to panic. My hands shook as I fumbled with the lock, keeping my eyes on him. Finally, the door opened. He was only a few feet away now. I ran out, straight into my brother-in-law, who had just pulled into the driveway. I barely got the words out. "There's a man in the house," before he rushed inside, but the man was gone. The only sign he had ever been there was the back door swinging wide open and a single muddy footprint on the kitchen rug. The police showed up shortly after. They think he came in through the back while I was cooking. And my phone? We never found it. It was like it had disappeared, just like him. Story 2. Drowned Silence. When I was 9 or 10, there was a place near my hometown that felt like a hidden paradise. A big river with an old dam, paddle boats, and a snack stand that sold overpriced ice cream. On warm days, the place was packed. Barefoot kids running everywhere, old couples in folding chairs, teenagers tanning like they were on a Spanish beach. It was heaven. I remember that day perfectly. I'd been splashing around near the dam when I started talking to a teenage girl who was there alone. As a kid, anyone older seemed cool. She was confident, calm, like an older sister. We hit it off fast and she let me tag along as we explored the riverbank, watching fish dart between rocks and diving underwater just for fun. Eventually, we got near a shallow area where a group of teenage girls was hanging out. One of them was complaining about how cold the water was. I mumbled, "That's dramatic," under my breath. Not loud enough for anyone to hear, or so I thought. But she heard, and her reaction was instant. She stormed over, shouting at me like I'd insulted her whole family. Before I could say a word, she pushed me under the water. I came up coughing, my heart pounding, trying to laugh it off, hoping to save face in front of my new friend. But it didn't work. The girl shoved me under again, harder. When I surfaced the second time, she was still yelling, but something about her face had changed. It was blank, like nobody was home behind her eyes. Then she grabbed my neck and shoved me down a third time. This wasn't a prank anymore. She held me under. I panicked, kicking, scratching, trying to escape. But she was strong, too strong. The water turned cloudy from the struggle, and then I lost track of which way was up. I thought, this is it. This is how I die. Drowning in front of a bunch of families eating sandwiches. Then I was up, gasping for air. My friend was holding me. People were shouting. Other girls dragged the attacker away, and she was still screaming like something had taken over her. My friend kept apologizing over and over, saying no one realized how serious it had gotten. She bought me an ice cream and took me out on a paddle boat to calm me down. I'll always be grateful for that. I never told my mom. I was too embarrassed. I felt like maybe it was my fault. I didn't want anyone to see how shaken I really was. I never really went back there after that. Something changed in me that day. I lost a little piece of the trust I had in people, especially strangers who smile too much. Story 3. The truck. When I was 15, I spent most weekends hanging out with my friend Maddie. She was a couple years younger, and we'd walk aimlessly through our quiet Texas neighborhood, popsicles in hand, trying not to melt in the heat. One afternoon, we were sitting on a curb near a tall wooden fence beside a side road. Not the smartest spot, but it was shaded. That's when the truck pulled up. It was an old pickup towing an empty trailer. 3 guys were inside. The driver looked rough, maybe in his 40s, the other 2 in their 20s. They started talking to us, casual at first. "Hot day, huh? You girls having fun?" But I noticed one of the younger guys scanning the area nervously, flashing this weird half-smile, like he wasn't okay with what was happening. We tried to play it cool, polite smiles, short answers. Maddie and I made eye contact, the kind that says, "Something feels off." Then the driver dropped the act. He commented on how we looked and asked if we wanted to go for a ride in the truck. Excuse me? There were 3 of them. Where exactly were we supposed to sit? Maddie quickly lied and said her dad was on his way to pick us up. Obvious lie. I pulled out my old flip phone, opened it, and pretended to talk to someone. I even waved like someone was walking toward us. There was no one. But it worked. The driver mumbled something, the younger guy flipped us off, and they sped off down the street. We were too freaked out to go straight home, so we cut through someone's backyard and hid behind a bush in our friend Katie's yard. Her family was out of town. After a while, we took the long way home, using every shortcut and back alley we knew. We thought it was over, but it wasn't. We went back out later, this time bringing Max, my German Shepherd. He was 90 pounds of pure attitude and looked like he belonged in a SWAT team. We didn't even make it halfway down the street before we saw the truck again. This time, they were parked in front of a neighbor's house, pretending to do landscaping, carrying bags of yard waste to the trailer. One of them spotted us and whispered something to the driver. He turned and stared. I didn't hesitate. We turned around and ran straight home. This time, we stayed inside, sat by the living room window, peeking out like scared spies. My cousins were skating in the driveway, a bunch of loud teenage boys, and I think that helped. Maybe made those guys rethink whatever they were planning. Looking back now, I still get chills. We were this close to something awful. We never really talked about how scared we were. But after that day, Max went with us everywhere. These were 3 true stories that happened during summer, when everything should be fun and light, but turned dark fast. Have you ever had a moment where things felt just a little too wrong? Let us know in the comments. And if you're still here, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next story might be even worse.